Thank you so much for meeting with me, President Gash.
My pleasure, Nora.
This is my final story at Pepperdine, and I thought you were the perfect person to interview for that.
Fantastic.
We've had a lot of defining tragedies over the past few years and over the years of your presidency. How have you relied on your faith amidst these tragedies, like the Franklin fire, the loss of Deslin, Peyton, Eve, and Asha?
Right. I would start off with saying the tragedy was having to send students home. My first tragedy was in March of 2020, having to say to the students, you need to go home, and we don't know when you're going to be able to come back. And so that was the biggest challenge for us. Then, of course, we had the tragedy on the other side of the country when the George Floyd situation happened, and that was a trauma to our community. It was a trauma to all communities.
Yeah.
And then we've had the fires and the rains, but the biggest emotional hit to our community was the loss of our four lights. And so that one, in all of these, it begins with prayer. It begins with seeking God's guidance. I've got a group of folks that I get to meet with regularly where we spend a lot of time. And for us, getting into the prayer posture of kneeling for us is an important part of signaling, not just in our words, but in our body, kind of submission to God and His will and His guiding. And what we ask more than anything is that God guide our steps.
Exactly.
And we believe He's been faithful to us. And that Pepperdine has made it through, even in the hardest, darkest hours of the loss of these four girls.
Yeah.
Pepperdine community remains strong and united in our grief and our sorrow and in our celebration of their life together.
It really did, and I feel like this community is so resilient, and despite every tragedy that comes our way, we come back fighting even harder.
Amen.
This biblical idea of walking through fire has been like something I've been thinking about.
Right.
How have you seen Pepperdine literally and figuratively walk through fire these past few years?
Well, we have we do everything we can to ensure that the literal fire is at bay, because what we do is we plan and prepare. We do a lot of clear cutting around buildings and up until the bottom of the hill. We have a plan that we execute, that the Emergency Operations Committee led by Phil Phillips and Nicole Taylor. And then what we do is we begin and end every meeting in prayer, and we are one in our mind and in our spirit and in our resolve to get through this. So it's planning, preparation, it's prayer, and then it's execution. And there's really no substitute for having excellent people who are united in faith, walking together, relying on each other, and executing a plan that has been prayerfully constructed. And then to watch the community, the students, and the RAs, and the faculty and the staff also play their part in the execution. Not everybody understands that when the fire is coming over the ridge, we're going to be okay. We've got this. And so there's this regular reassurance, but seeing it executed and having people who are calm, like the student affairs team, really walking through with the students on this journey. And so the only way to walk through fire is to walk through together, and we've been doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And as president of the university, a lot of people look to you when these tragedies happen, and I'm sure it's a lot of pressure put on you. How has your faith been tested amidst all of this?
Yeah, I would say my faith is tested on a daily basis, like everybody else's. But what I have is a team that I can rely on, that I can delegate to. And while I am the person who is the one who reports to the Board of Regents, and so in the end, as a practical matter, the buck stops with me, I have people who are leading their areas where from their perspective, the buck stops with them on executing the plan. And then they've got people under them who the buck stops with them in executing their aspect of it. So I wouldn't say that my faith has ever wavered or I've ever wondered whether God was with us, because I believe that everything He gives us, He strengthens us to be able to manage. And so
I totally agree.
As we get hit with more and more and larger, we just think, okay, the Lord must have confidence in the faithfulness of this community to remain rooted in and reliant upon Him and His Son, and we just rely on that as we go. And so I feel like my faith increases every day, particularly when I get to see what's happening in the lives of our students who are being equipped and prepared to leave and serve here. and to be there when our students are worshiping together or performing together. I see Smothers Theater right there in front of me, which is where Jolene and I had a chance to go the other night to watch Dance in Flight and to see them perform. And it wasn't just the audience. It was packed with students as well.
Yeah.
And to hear them during their performance, calling out people's names and encouraging them and celebrating them, I just think what an opportunity to be part of a community that is that united and that cohesive.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're going to be visiting spots on campus where community and faith is fostered. What spots stand out to you?
Where community and faith is fostered?
Yes. Or is there?
Yeah, it's limited to the entire campus, but I'll pick I'll pick a handful. I mean, I see to my left the Elkins Auditorium, where each Sunday evening Waves Church meets, and you see a couple hundred students worshiping together as Taylor brings a message. And then I see to my left this area, this Mullentown Square, where we celebrate the lighting of the Christmas tree.
Yes.
And I'm sure we'll see the amphitheaters. We walk down there where the students gather at the well. And the well, of course, once a semester comes to my house, and the opportunity to have people worshiping at my house, and then coming down to the pool area where a handful of students routinely give their life to Christ in baptism. And then the chapel, of course, where the University Church meets, where Jolene and I are part of both churches. So those are some of the places, but faith happens in students' dorms. It happens in the classroom. It happens probably as much as anywhere in the professors' offices, as the professors walk that journey with the students and help them see what it looks like to be a follower of Christ, doing things with excellence and saying, that's what I could be. I could be a professor, or I could be an administrator, or I could be a business person or a lawyer, and to see all of the places. It's great to walk through here. Sometimes there's students praying together, and I just think, this is what God made this campus for.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, let's go to our first location.
Fantastic.
Which is Payson Library.
Okay. Before you were a student here, Payson Library looked very different. It was renovated maybe a decade ago or so. Hey, Fallon. And it's become even more focused on student gathering and community. Where a library used to be almost exclusively where you looked at books. Now it has books as backdrop, and sometimes there's people reading books, but mostly it's a gathering place to study and to do life together.
And there are certain portions of the library that are lend itself more to community gathering and more to studying. So
the surfboard room, we have regular gatherings in the surfboard room.
And there's definitely a distinction between do I want to gather and socialize with my friends, or do I want to actually walk in and study?
Yeah. We can see study rooms over here where it's more conducive to really buckling down.
Yes, exactly.
Where other places that you want to gather and do life, getting work done, but also not having the intensity associated with every aspect. You can't be intensely studying at all times.
Exactly. Yeah, just mixing in that chatter. So this Payson Library is the first location we're visiting. This, I believe, is a place where community and faith was fostered during the Franklin fire, during the shelter in place. So kind of tell me about what happened here that day of the fire.
So when the fire broke out, we were just finishing a gathering at my house. It's an annual Christmas party for our donors and regents. The regents are the people I report to. And as we were going to bed, we knew that there was a fire in the canyon, but the wind was blowing away from campus, and so we were watching it closely, but it wasn't an immediate threat to campus. Well, soon thereafter we got the call that in fact the wind had shifted and it was coming this direction. So of course the Emergency Operations Committee got together, which is not far from here in the Thornton Administrative Center. And then I started just walking the campus and just walking through and letting people know we're not sheltering in place yet, but we may need to. And so I spent some time out there in the parking lot, and then I came and walked through here, and everyone I could find, it was just like, just so you know, there is a fire, we're fine. And if it comes this direction, we'll also be fine. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna gather together in here and in the cafeteria, and you're gonna have a lot of instruction on what to do. So we'll just keep you updated. So about every 45 minutes for the rest of the time, all through the night, I would come over to the Payson Library and to the Thornton, to the cafeteria, to just make sure people knew that I was still here. I haven't split. My wife and my daughter were in the cafeteria. And what questions do you have? But the student affairs team and the RAs and SLAs were heroes in that because they were a voice of calm. They knew we had a plan and we were executing it. And so this was a place where people, I suspect nobody who graduates from Pepperdine who was here during the fire won't remember that.
Yes.
Like you will remember where you were when that fire happened, and you'll remember being in the library and being surrounded by people who knew what they were doing and ensured that you were aware, were ensuring that you were able to communicate with your family.
Yeah.
And we had the regents, my bosses spent the night with the students in the library.
Wow.
That shows you how confident we were
Yeah.
that the plan that we had was going to be executed safely,
Yeah.
because we wouldn't put them at risk if we weren't willing to put our students at risk. We weren't
Yeah.
like we're not. Their students are the highest priority. If we believe they're safe, then other people will be safe. If we don't believe the students are going to be safe, we're not going to put anybody else in there as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'll never forget the videos that we were seeing of the flames coming right
Yeah.
up to this window, and
Yeah.
tons of students gathered here. And
Yeah.
a lot of students said they really bonded with their peers at that time. Basically, everyone who lives on campus was here. So what did they tell you about interacting with their community in that way? Like, what were you hearing that night?
Yeah.
What were students talking about? What were they doing?
Students, well, periodically when I'd come through, somebody had a guitar and they were singing some sort of hymn, or they were praying together, or they were just playing games. Somebody had brought games and they were all playing games. And every time I came through, they're like, "Yeah, we're good. We know what's going on." Now there were some tense moments, as there's going to be when the fire gets close. What they couldn't see, and they couldn't understand from where they were, is the Emergency Operations Committee was in direct contact with the firefighters who were at the base where the fire was, putting it out and making sure that every place there was a spot fire, they were ready for it. And we had spotters going around. Public safety is trained in fire situations as well. So we had a whole panoply of people who were making sure everything was okay. And what they also don't necessarily know is that the materials that the building is made out of are fire resistant.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
hardly anything
Yeah.
is fire proof, but it's fire resistant, such that you get some flames on this. This isn't going to go up like a tree or like wood or some other materials. And so the planning I spoke about earlier goes all the way back to when this campus was created, because we know where we are. We're in the most beautiful place in America, maybe in the world. And part of that includes being in the midst of nature.
Yeah.
And being in the midst of nature means that you're subject to natural disasters or natural consequences, and one of those is a fire. And so about once every 10 years, we are threatened with fire coming our direction, and we're always ready for it.
Yeah. What good things came out of that situation?
Yeah. I think there was a lot of trust that was gained with this student, with this group of students and their parents, who understandably were wondering, like, wait, there's a fire there and you guys aren't leaving? We saw in the Palisades fire 1 month later, when you get people in cars and you get in traffic jams, like they had to run and their cars burned. The last thing we want is students in a place where they're vulnerable and don't know and are stuck in traffic. You know, the last big fire here, the Woolsey fire, it took 6 hours to drive from Malibu to Santa Monica because of how much traffic. Can you imagine if all of our Pepperdine students were doing that as well?
Yeah.
And where they were, it was the safest place. So we reaffirmed the confidence we have and that the LA Fire Department has in our plan to shelter in place.
Yeah.
Because we saw, yes, it works. If you execute it, it works.
Yeah.
And I think the students, you know, when you go through something with your peers, there's that bonding that happens, that there's that shared memory that you create, and there's that shared sense of calm that you can do hard things, and when things are threatening you, then you know, okay, it's going to be okay, and I'm going to be here with people who care about me, the administration and the other students. But I'm also going to be here with my peers, and we're going to have the solidarity that comes from those sorts of experiences.
Yeah, I totally agree. Being with people you know and people that care about you is really heartening, especially when there's fire coming up. You know, if you're surrounded by a good group of people, you feel safer.
Amen.
So
Amen.
Let's go to our next
Okay.
location. One of like the final things that happened before the Franklin fire.
You're exactly right. You're exactly
I'm glad
right.
we got that before that fire
Yeah.
broke out.
But that's a place, this is one of the places that we use in Mullen Town Square, and the Mullen family
yeah.
has been incredibly generous with Pepperdine. In fact, the same Mullen Town Square that this is named after is the mountain at Mullen Park.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so they're incredibly generous, and they're eager for opportunities for Pepperdine to have community locations where students can
that's
bond
great.
together.
And how is the mountain at Mullen?
Oh my goodness, it's going
the
so
the
well.
whole parking lot is done.
The parking lot's
crazy.
done, yeah, and the construction itself, you can just watch it almost on a daily basis coming out of the ground. Where we have the student center is really kind of the one that's made the least amount of progress because of the way they're sequencing things.
Yeah.
But you see the arena itself, the steel superstructure is up. You see the practice gym. People don't necessarily know what they're looking at, but there's a practice gym adjacent to the arena, between the arena and the parking structure. They're making quite a bit of progress on that as well.
That's amazing. Very exciting. Okay, so we're here at our next location.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday, the Well is hosted here.
Right.
Tell me about the Well, and tell me how community and faith is fostered here on a weekly basis.
Yeah. So this is the location where we have our student worship team comes and leads a group of, sometimes there's 350 or 400 people here, where there's a speaker. Oftentimes it's someone from the outside. You know, we've had Bob Goff and Gary Haugen. Bob Goff from Love Does, Gary Haugen, International Justice Mission, Christine Kane, people who are known, you know, Katie Robertson Huff, I think this is her name.
Yes.
The people come and speak here, and then there's a gathering beforehand where people are interacting with each other socially, and then at the end, when it's over, they just like more, and so the worship team will continue to play. But this is a place where so many students have found a community of faith to walk with on this journey, and to say, to look to the left or right and say, oh, you too. This is an important part of your life as well.
Yeah.
Let's go have a cup of coffee. And for me, being able to come and worship with students, that's the thing that probably brings the single most thing that brings the most joy to my life as a president, is worshiping with students. And this is a place where it happens all the time.
Yeah, is there any experience that you've heard where someone's, found faith here? I know that there are baptisms here sometimes.
Yeah.
What have you heard from students specifically about what the Well means to them?
Yeah. Over and over again, people tell us, this is a time where I was brought to my knees, where I only came because a friend invited me, and then as I was worshiping and listening, I decided, you know what? My college experience can't be just about me. It can't be just about studying. I need to rediscover what brought me to Pepperdine in the first place for some people, or for people who say, I had no idea why I was coming to Pepperdine. Now I see why I'm coming to Pepperdine. And so, there's baptisms here regularly. There's also at my house that come from here. And there was a guy who came back and spoke years later, and he said, I came to the Well some as a student, but I never decided that this was going to be a big part of my life. But when I graduated, I thought back, the time that I felt most connected to God, the time I felt most in control of my lack of discipline, was when I was worshiping with my fellow students here at the Well, and then he became one of the campus ministers here for a few years.
Yeah, and it's definitely a bonding experience because you're with so many people. I mean, this packs every single Wednesday. So, well, let's walk down to our final location, which is the chapel. How long has that been going on, the Well?
Well, there's something that was called, we'll go down one more, it was called Care Group, that started in the 80s, where Scott Lambert and Linda Trushke used to lead that. That met in Elkins, and then Thomas Fitzpatrick, who was a campus minister a few campus ministers ago, was the first person who called it the Well. Hello everyone, good to see you, welcome to Pepperdine. Come back, come spend some time here.
That was fun.
So he was the one who came up with the idea of calling their regular gathering the Well, and they moved it here to the amphitheater. Just it made too much sense to use what we already have rather than going inside.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the deep well of God's grace, and ever replenishing. That was the idea behind it. And so then that's been kind of in various iterations since then.
Yeah, that's great. And it's kind of morphed into this amazing worship experience.
Yeah.
The whole, what's the band called that worships?
They're called, it'll come to me. Waves Worship.
Waves Worship. Yes.
There used to be something called the
WS.
Well Collective,
Yeah.
but this is Waves Worship.
Yeah. They're just amazing. And I
They
think
are.
practice really hard for
Yeah, and they've actually
Wednesday.
written some original songs that are now on Spotify.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Just being here is super moving.
Ah, yeah, it is.
And I don't know what it is about it, but something just gets me every time with it. Talk to me about why you set up these 4 lights and what they mean to this university.
So as you'll recall, that night when we got the call, another time the EOC was brought together in the middle of the night, and at that time we knew there had been a horrific accident. We knew that it involved some Pepperdine students. We didn't know the extent of it, and they weren't releasing details. And so one of the things that modern technology allows you to know is where somebody's phone is. And so the friends of these 4 had them on this app where you could see where the phones were, and the phones weren't moving, and the phones were in the location of the accident. And so we had a pretty strong idea that things had gone tragically wrong, and we got confirmation the next morning. And so our community went into one of the things it does best, and that's gathers around each other and just says, this is a tough time, but you're not alone. Don't go to your room. We even said, let's not do classes. Let's get people in community together. Let's make sure that people were supported in the ways they needed to be supported. And as it unfolded, and as the girls' parents came into town, one of the girls, her mom actually works at Pepperdine, that we had the opportunity. And when I say we, I'm going to give a lot of credit to Connie Horton, who, as the vice president of student affairs,
Did a lot.
Yeah, she was the one who walked this journey with the family, had to make the calls to let them know what had happened, and to be able to say, we're going to be here for you, not just today, not just tomorrow, not just next week, not just next month, but this is your place. And so when we were talking about what we should do, we like every other school in the country, we will occasionally lose students for various reasons. Some of it through tragedies like this one, some of it through other means, whether it's illness or some other time to lose. And you don't always create for every student a memorial because your campus would be filled. But this was different.
It was.
This was for immediate, in our vicinity, going to a Pepperdine sponsored event, people who were very deeply engaged in the community. And so as you may recall, the theme for that year was light. And so as we were thinking through what would be an appropriate way to remember them, the idea of 4 lights, because they were lights. You talked to all of their friends and family, and they were the epitome of what it means to be a light, not just in their families, but on this campus as well.
They were.
And so we had some folks looking at potential locations, and Ben Vienendahl, who's head of construction at Pepperdine, had this idea to have these 4 lights here that really kind of covered the scope of the behind the chapel. So it's in a sacred place. It was in a place that you could see the ocean. And one thing that no one knew at the time, but we found out later, is Asha, whose memorial is here. She came to this spot when she was on her tour as a student. And I can show you a picture that we got from her mother.
Yeah.
And this picture was taken while she was visiting here on her looking at Pepperdine. And I'm gonna have to pull this up.
Wow.
And when this picture was taken, she was standing right there.
Wow.
And what she said to her mom at that time, according to her mother who told us this, was, I love Pepperdine so much. And she was standing right there, and she said, I could stay here forever. And it was a location that was literally 4 or 5 feet away from where she ultimately is going to be forever remembered.
Yeah.
So talk about something that says, okay, Lord, okay, Lord, I
oh
can,
my gosh.
I can see how you're comforting us. There was one place in this campus where she thought, this is a place that I could stay forever. And
That's a beautiful picture, yeah.
And we had no idea
No.
that
Just right there.
that this was, when we created this memorial, we had no idea that that's where she was standing. So there's those times when God winks at you and says,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yep.
I'm walking with you on this journey.
Yeah.
And it's going to be okay. As hard as it is, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because you're not alone.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm getting choked up too. It's just such an emotional place to be. And it's really become a place of mourning and a place of honoring and remembering these people. What have you heard from students about what this place means to them?
Yeah, those who knew them well come here more often than those who didn't. Who just, I want to be in a place where I can remember Deslin, where I can remember Asha, where I can understand and take in the beauty and the permanence of God's creation here. And to have a place, rather than being alone in my room and thinking about them, there's a place I can go that will allow me to mourn and grieve properly, but also to remember the smile, to remember her humor, to remember the joy, and to say, this place will forever be the home for a memorial for each of them, and for the joy that comes from knowing that this isn't the end. The end isn't here. This is a marker of something greater than what life gives us, a place where we can remember the hope we have.
Yeah, and it really, every time I come here, it really feels like they're here. I don't know if you feel that way, but I feel their presence here. And I think this is such a beautiful way to honor and remember them. But just kind of going over your presidency, there's a lot that's happened during your presidency.
Right.
How do you feel about it, and how have you become a better leader after facing all of this turmoil?
Yeah, there's our theme last year was joy, and people would ask me, what's it like being a president? It's like every day is filled with joy. Most days are fun. This job is filled with joy because of what I get to do, with whom I get to do it, and the eternal significance of it. Not every day is fun. Yeah. Not every day is fun because there's difficult decisions to make, there's tragedies that happen, there are consequences to certain personnel decisions that one makes that aren't always fun. But I get to be with students, so I get to be forever young. You can look at pictures of me when I started, like I had stuff here and maybe a little bit less here, but I get to be with this constant renewal that Pepperdine has through its students. And I get to, look from my office right over there and watch our golf team practicing right there on their practice course. And then I get to go over to the field house and watch our basketball and volleyball teams compete. And I get to go down to the tennis center and watch our tennis teams compete. And then I get to go down to the pool and watch our water polo and swim and dive compete. And then I get to go, as I mentioned, to Smothers and watch Dance in Flight and watch the opera and watch the orchestra. And I get to be with students in my home. I get to be with students in worship in church. And I mean, there's nothing better that I could conceive of for a career than to get to do what I get to do. So the feelings that I have more than anything is feeling blessed and feeling thankful, and to be able to do it alongside a wonderful woman who also went to Pepperdine, who is so engaged with Pepperdine, is engaged as I am. So she's part of she meets with the first generation students because she was a first generation student at Pepperdine. She meets with the Student Wellness Advisory Board. She does things with our RISE folks. She goes and meets with members of our extended community and helps tell stories about people like you and your colleagues, for them to say, you know what, I want to be the Stouffer family, the Stouffer Chapel, to the Thornton family, to every family that has left a legacy at Pepperdine, so that we can have students like you and like your colleagues who come through here and be able to experience the joy that comes from being equipped by a faculty that is dedicated to them, that mentors them and prepares them, and a staff that supports them and helps guide their paths, and a support staff who keeps this place beautiful.
Yeah.
We have people who don't always get in front of cameras, but they're the ones who ensure that when you come to a place like this, or when you come to the chapel, when you come to your classroom, everything's in place, everything's clean, everything's prepared. You know, the cafeteria staff. We just get to work with incredible people, and so more than anything, I feel grateful to be in this position.
Yeah, especially through the fires. What is your message to those who have lost faith or questions God's plan during all of these tragedies, especially the Franklin fire and the loss of these 4 beautiful girls?
Yeah. What I would say to them is that's natural, that's understandable. There's biblical examples of that, of people who have struggled in their faith, but have said, okay, Lord, I'm walking through a deep valley right now. David is one of those. I walk through the valley of shadow of death. But your rod and your staff comfort me. And there's going to be seasons where we feel farther from God or feel closer to God. What I would say is understand that the season that you're walking is a chapter, it's not the story. There are more chapters that are going to unfold, and that lean in to those who in your life who are going to be encouraging you. Somebody is on a peak right now, you're in a valley, go walk together. Spend some time in the Word, spend some time on your knees, and know that there's more to your life than this difficult time right now. Like, this too shall pass. And understand that there are people who find their faith and make it their own even after they graduate, because of the foundation that was laid here, because of the roots that have grown deep here, because of the relationships they have established here, who are going to help them during their tough times. And they are going to be the one walking in the valley with somebody else when they're in a tough time. So just hold on and hold on to God.
Yeah, and I really think, seniors are about to take our last walk at Alumni Park, but our walk of faith isn't over.
Amen.
And it's going to continue throughout our life. So thank you, President Gash, so
Thank
much
you.
for meeting with me and talking with me and basically going on a walk of faith with me around campus.
Well, thank you, Nora.
I absolutely loved it.
I did too.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.